most toxic place in America, the main supply of metals for the world wars, a town that lasted under a century. This is Picher, Oklahoma. In the early 1900s, lead and zinc mining boomed in northeastern Oklahoma. It stayed strong until the late 1960s. One town that was extremely involved in the lead and zinc mining was Picher, Oklahoma. Picher produced over half of the metals used in the world wars. These mines were first discovered by George Coleman, but he kept them a secret until he had bought many acres of land from the Indian tribes in the area to start mining on. After people discovered what he was doing, they started buying land to mine on. The town's population peaked in 1926 with 14,252 residents. Most of the citizens of Picher worked in the mines to provide for their families. After the mining had completed in 1967, the environment was extremely damaged. Most of the damage came from the mine tailings, or chat, that was left behind from the mines. In the early 2000s, a voluntary buyout was offered by the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. This buyout was meant to help people get away from the pollution and live in safer conditions, but as chairman of the committee in charge of the buyout, Mark Osborne said they underestimated how hard it would be for people to give up their homes because that is where they grew up. Because of all of these things, the environment, the economy, and the security of the area were affected both positively and negatively. When the mines opened in 1913, the economy of the area began to grow rapidly. The population of the town grew extremely large, extremely fast. The town was incorporated in 1918, and by 1920 there were 9,726 citizens living there. Soon after the lead was discovered, the town started bringing in billions of dollars. From 1917 to 1947, in Picher's mining peak, over $20 billion worth of metals were produced. While the mining took place, there were over 14,000 miners working for the different mining companies and around 4,000 working in mining services. The town became a boom town in no time. Soon, there was a school system that had a large high school, a large junior high, and many elementary schools in around the town. There were also banks, movie theaters, restaurants, and even 2 railroads. While Picher was a boomtown, it still maintained the feel of a small community. Many feel that this aspect also was a big factor what made Picher great. The community worked together to overcome things. Many of these things had to do with the drop in the economy after World War II ended. In 1940, there were 5,848 people in the town, but by 1950, the population had dropped 32.4% to 3,951. 10 years later, the population had decreased even more to 2,553, which was 17.9% of Picher's highest population. In 1967, when the mines were shut down, many people lost their jobs. This immediately took the average income of the town go down dramatically. Since many of the miners had a minimum education, it became hard for them to find jobs. Many families started living off unemployment for a very long time because of this.
We lived off unemployment, which unemployment at that time was about $35 a week. And I was always raised where I could live off the land. We always did, hunt, fished, all that, and we still did. We had a good life.
After the drop in the economy, the town was still functioning for another 30 to 40 years. In 2004, a $50 million voluntary buyout commenced. It was mainly because of the lead pollution and the rise in lead in children's blood levels because of the contamination. This buyout was aimed toward the families with children under the age of 6, but was available to anyone in the area. A tornado smashed the town in the middle of the buyout. This encouraged many people to leave their town for their own good. Some decided to stay in the place where they grew up.
Right in the middle of this process was the Picher tornado, in which there were 100 homes or more destroyed. And Larry Glenn and Charlie Wyrick helped pass a state law where we were able to go in and buy out those people as if their homes still existed so they could then move on to go somewhere else.
The buyout was an amazing thing that helped the economy tremendously. It did this by making the abandonment of some residences' homes more stable and easier. It also allowed the economy of Picher to slowly and steadily decrease instead of having a large immediate drop. The economy of Picher went through major positives and negatives, but most of the positives and negatives stemmed from the same cause, which was the mines in the area. The remarkable thing about the mining in Picher is how much lead and zinc was produced. What is hard to imagine is that over half of the metals used in the world wars came from the Picher mining district. Some might say we owe large portions of our victories in the wars to these highly productive mines.
You have to look at what would happen worldwide with your wars, early World War I, World War II. You'd have to look at what would be the consequences without it, because you look at the consequences without it, there wouldn't be no freedom in the United States, because you'd be overrun by other countries. And when there's always something like that, eventually there'll be consequences, no matter what it is. There'll be something later on in life that will say, well, we shouldn't have done that, but if you look at history through it, you'll say, yeah.
America would not have been able to fight the world wars without this mining town. These mines were the main source of metals for the wars. The American wartime industry was largely dependent on the metals that came from this mine.
Because, like I said, you look down the future, we'd have no freedom. And without freedom, where would you be? You know, we don't know, because we don't have to do it. Be like some of these other third world countries.
Our country bases our government off the idea of freedom. If the United States would not have been blessed with its towns and the metals that came from it, then we would not have what is to us a key essential to our enjoyment of life. The national security that was given to us by the mines is worth more than the $20 billion that came from them. This could possibly be the most important thing to look back at when we are talking about the Picher mines in the mining district. The country was willing to exchange the future stability of the area for security at the time and freedom for much longer. The biggest concern and negation of the mining that took place in Picher was how it affected the area years later. The environment is forever affected, and the children in the area were hurt by the pollution. Some may say it was worth it, while others say it wasn't. All we know for sure is that the result of the mining was extremely negative on the environment and the children living there. Many people try to keep the citizens away from the towering chat piles that were covered in lead. The chat piles infected the water, soil, and even raised lead levels in children. This had an extreme effect on performance in school and the education of the children in the area that was affected by the pollution. In fact, 34% of the children that lived in the area affected by the pollution. The EPA has labeled Picher the most toxic place in America. This just shows you how much it was affected by the mining. The mining also left many safety issues. Many sinkholes have opened up because of the mines and the fact that the mining companies conducted illegal mining. They did this by lying to the state about how many pillars were in the mines, and so the state of Oklahoma would allow them to take pillars down, but it was not safe to do this, and therefore many miners died because the companies they worked for would lie and do illegal procedures. This caused there to be no support for the ground years later, which caused sinkholes to open up that could swallow whole houses. Some of the environmental issues that we have today could have been avoided, while others were not avoidable without completely stopping the mining. Many people like to focus mainly on the consequences that came from the mining in Picher, but most do not look at the whole story. The mining brought in over $20 billion and helped the economy of the area greatly. It also helped secure the freedom of America for many more years to come. We as Americans exchanged the future stability of one area for the freedom and safety of a whole country. There are still pollution problems, but those can in time be fixed. The miners and their families encountered many things along the way, including a rise and loss in income, many deaths and tragedies, and great life experiences that have stayed with them throughout their lives. The mining in Picher, Oklahoma was a great thing for the community and anyone who learns about it today. Overall, there were many negations to the mining, such as loss of lives and environmental issues that will last for decades, but it was a great thing because it helped the economy of Picher and national security of America.